first Q&A, how do you know when you've outgrown a job and it's time to look for another? I think by asking that question, you have outgrown your job. So how do you know when you've outgrown your job? 1, you're bored. 2, you're bored. 3, you're bored. So if you're bored, you've probably outgrown your job, or your job's too easy for you. Both are shitty situations. Get yourself out of that. The other way I think you know you've outgrown a job is that you don't feel like good stress about anything. You're not like excited or motivated to go chomp at something bigger or do something new. Another way I think you've outgrown your job is, for me anyways, when I felt like I've outgrown a job, I tend to get really frustrated where it's like a constant eye roll of like, ugh. Like you feel like you already know everything, which, let's be honest, you don't, but you can feel that way because you're not being stimulated or challenged or exposed to things that push you to someplace new. So I mostly think that if you're bored in your job, you don't feel a stress. If you ask yourself honestly, what do I not know how to do today? What am I doing today that's new and I'm doing for the first time? If the answer is nothing, you've probably outgrown your job. The other thing, which is fairly obvious, is how long have you been in your job? Like, I don't think there's any formula for how much time you need to be in a job before you outgrow it. But if you've been in the same job for, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years. I mean, I interviewed a guy last week who's been in the same job or worked for the same company for 18 years. And I was like, I don't think you'd be a great fit here. But I think that's kind of then you're just comfortable, right? So I think the great news is if you're talking about outgrowing a job, it means that you're interested in growing into a new job, which is how you should start to look at things and really where I would focus the energy. I think sometimes when people outgrow a job, they then get negative and kind of destructive about that job itself versus putting their energy to finding whatever the new not outgrown job is next. So that's my take on outgrowing your job. Second question, in nearly every professional review I've ever had, the same theme appears in the could use improvement category. I tend to become defensive. Hold on, Dave Portnoy. Don't know the answer. Okay. In nearly every professional review I've ever had, the same theme appears in the could use improvement category. I tend to become defensive when I or my work is criticized. And although one of my consistent strengths is being very self-aware with high EQ, this continues to be something I struggle with. Any advice for someone that takes everything to heart and reacts emotionally when given feedback or any sort of criticism? Oh my God, I feel you. Everyone is emotional. Everyone takes things too much to heart, or most people anyways. So one, I have a lot of empathy with that. I can feel the same way. I can get defensive. Sometimes I feel like when you're criticized in your job, your first reaction is to be defensive, either because you're insecure about something or you feel vulnerable or you feel attacked, or the way that feedback comes across just makes you kind of crouch. That said, nobody is perfect. Everyone is flawed. No one is a master of something all the time, all the way through. And feedback is a gift, right? So the more you are criticized or given feedback in your job, it means a couple things. One is that people care enough to give you the feedback. Like at Barstool Sports, if I'm ignoring you, that's a bad sign. If I'm giving you a fuck ton of feedback, I'd be a little concerned, but I would also feel like I'm engaged. I think to not be engaged with is the single worst thing at work. It means your manager or your boss's boss or whomever, or your peers, they don't respect you, they don't care to have you involved, they're not engaged with you. So engagement is really important. So let's start there, which is people are giving you feedback. So you're doing something that people care about. The second thing is when people give you feedback, one technique I try anyways, and I don't know if this is a great way to do it, is I try to take a deep breath and like count to 6 or count to 5 or count to some number that just makes that first fuck you reaction go away. Because people are defensive, people are vulnerable. It's human nature to fight back when someone says that you're not doing the right thing. So the first thing I try to do is just to take a deep breath and to be very calm. The second thing is sometimes a really good thing to do is to repeat back what you just heard, not in a high-pitched, emotional, escalating type of way, but to say back to someone, okay, I understand that what you're concerned about is ABC, or what I'm hearing you say is that you really dislike the way I blank, blank, blank. Get the facts, right? So take a deep breath, get the facts of what someone is telling you, thank them for the feedback, and then say, I'd love the opportunity to digest this and think about it and come back to you with some ways that I could do a better job or make this work, or not even say do a better job. I'd love to come back to you with some thoughts after I've had a chance to digest. What this will do is it shows a mature reaction. It really makes sure that you both understand, the person giving you the feedback and you yourself understand exactly the same thing about what's being said. It makes the person you're giving feedback to feel heard, which is important. And then lastly, it buys you time to go have your negative freak out, screw you reaction, and then to come back with a decent way to make the situation work. And you may come back and say, hey, you gave me 5 points of feedback. I completely understand where 1 through 3 are coming from, and here are ideas for how I can do a better job, or we can do a better job of that. I disagree with point number 4, and on point number 5, I'd like to educate you as to why this happens and to get your perspective on how I could do a better job or we could do a better job fixing it. So it turns the conversation from a defensive, reactive, emotional conversation to a proactive conversation where you're investing in finding a solution, making things better, while also advocating for yourself and giving insight into why things happen to be a certain way. All right, last question is, what's the number one thing you look for when interviewing someone? Eye contact. So that's my biggest thing. If someone doesn't make eye contact, this thing is not going anywhere. So I like eye contact. I like someone who can articulate what they've done succinctly. Like, I don't need a rambling overview of your career. I don't think anybody wants that. Nobody has the time and attention. And it also gives me a sense of how that person would describe us and working here. Like, you want something succinct. I did this, this, and this. Here's what it accomplished. My career has really been at the intersection of blank, blank, and blank. I've delivered these 5 things. I've really learned I'm passionate about this. And then the next thing is to come to the table with ideas about the job you're interviewing for. I find so much of the time people do not come prepared. Oh my God. So I had this informational discussion. I got introduced to 2 people by someone very, very, very high powered who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. We go into the conversation and they're asking me all sorts of questions about digital influencers and media personalities and the business you could create around them. And what I realized is they had no idea who I was. They had no idea what Barstool Sports does. And they were ignorant about the subject matter that we were talking about. And it made me feel insulted because it made me feel like I was wasting my time. Like, why am I giving an hour of my day to something that doesn't have anything to do with Barstool Sports to be like, waste my time? So don't make the person interviewing you feel like you wasted their time. And vice versa, right? If you're interviewing and the person you're interviewing with has no interest in where you've worked, what you've done, how you did it, what your ideas are, that's insulting to you. Don't go work at that place.